And for this, of course, the indicators and data sets that we were discussing today are fundamental because they should help us in assessing the different scenarios, the different options, and so to make more responsible and transparent choices in urban planning. One last point I would like to ask you is about citizens, because we have mentioned in the different speeches today this topic, not in an explicit way, but the need to be to have a transparency in the production of the data, of the decision, and of the monitoring system has been there in all the interventions of the day. So do you think there is the possibility not only to present the data, so to really have this sort of publicity about what's going on, and to collect information from the bottom? I'm thinking, for example, not only to the municipalities, which of course are one of the main actors in this because they are producing the changes, but also to professionals, for example, that are working on the smaller scale of the transformations. So do you imagine that there could be a sort of collection of information and integration of information of the data set that are produced at a higher level from the bottom?
Yeah, well, it came to my mind two nice examples. One, for example, in Switzerland, there is one bank that is not giving loans when you want to build a house. If this house will increase, they have an index for urban sprawl, and if this house will increase this index by above certain threshold, will not give you a loan. And below this index, the loan, the conditions depend on how within a range where is this, this index. In fact, this index was a joint work between the European Environment Agency and the Environment Agency of Switzerland, because they were really worried about how to measure urban sprawl, and it's a complex index that combines. But it's a practical thing. And then when it comes to money, people suddenly realize it was only a bank, that it was a cooperative, so they were also, but the thing is example. Another example is in Vitoria, in Gasteiz, that it was a former European green capital, and it's very famous for all the green belt and the green development, and because it's a rare case in Spain that you can go by bike almost everywhere. And on the new developments they have single homes are not allowed, and mainly a building, but they do in a way that they compensate the height by all the space that is around the building. So it's a mix still between the urban structure, because then they facilitate that the building on the basement has facilities, the stores, etc. But then it's a lot of park around, and this is very well perceived by the families. So, or at least in Spain, it has been a move of young families expelled from the center of the city to sometimes less expensive, now more expensive, neighboring areas, usually single homes. But in Vitoria, they show that you can be effective, not ceiling, so densifying in height, still maintaining certain quality, and the quality of the environment. It's nice because you have a park and you have amenities, but also you can go by foot at school. But then it's mainly is not bottom-up driven, so it was interest or somebody at the municipality that had a certain vision, or in the case of Switzerland, it was a bank. But in the case of the bank, it was a cooperative, so it was the people that owned this bank that decided this is important, and it's important how we want to invest the money. So I think that the single initiative, it's usually you don't get that much, but from NGOs probably is when you get the most. And well, then it comes citizen science. It's also important, and it's in many different examples. But for example, I can talk for Spain on invasive alien species. Currently it's monitored by people. They have an app, and then could easily identify where certain species are arriving, etc. It's a bit far from the Atlantic, but and it's more difficult. People realize, so people usually see the sprawl as a good thing because we have a nicer environment. But when I confronted with different options, sometimes they don't see these different options.
About citizen science, we tried since 2 years ago to publish an app for citizens to make signals of land take in Italy, and it was appreciated but not used. Only few cases communicated to us. On one side is because, from our point of view, people is not aware of the problem. So in sprawl settlements, people think it's a good way to live. They are not aware of problems they create to themselves and to others in this way of living. So there's a problem of awareness to promote citizen science response, to have data useful for our business. And on the other side, from the institutional point of view, remained the problem of the property and the appropriate data to address the problems. So it's not easy to have from citizens information at the level or detail, precision, can be included in our so difficult classification and indicators and calculation. It's of course the future, but it must be properly planned. We can't use a social media question to answer if what land take percentage we have in a city. It can't be done, of course. Thank you.
So, well, citizen awareness and closing the gaps with citizens is one of the goals of the Commission. I think that from, let's say, from bottom-up science, I don't know if you call it really science, but one good example is the OpenStreetMap, for example. This is something that is generated by citizens. People can contribute on voluntary basis. But still we have some issues. It's a good thing, but we cannot use it for our purposes because we have gaps, the precision, we were just saying. So it's difficult. On the other side, letting people aware of what we are doing. We try to promote this in every public event we are going. We try to involve newspapers and things. And sometimes we have some reaction. We have a couple of examples that I can present here. It was a Belgian newspaper that recently published an article using our data. We didn't know anything about this. And it was showing the urbanization using our built-up data in Belgium, and was discussing how since 1975 till 2015 the rural area was increasingly built in so few years, and that was amazing. Saying, okay, well, good. But there is also a couple of examples of single individuals that were using our data, and they produced stories based on our data on blogs. that was really interesting and was amazing. We have a colleague that is working with our web and is also browsing the internet, finding news about people using our data set and things. And he found these two guys that took our urban center database and just used all the information that were inside this Excel and drove maps, global maps of things, adding stories to what we already wrote in our report. It was very interesting. So sometimes you see some reaction and they are very interesting. And well, so I think it's important. Sometimes it moves, but not always.
Thank you very much. I told you before that was my last question, but it was a lie. Because now I would like, first of all, to thank you all for the information, the knowledge you shared with us. But I'm curious to know if you are bringing home also some new perspective from the discussion today. So what are you bringing home from our workshop?
Well, a lot. Because, well, within our production of things, sometimes we are overwhelmed by things we have to do, but I think we can add a lot of things in our databases, a lot of indicators. I saw we are not expert in land take. We, at least in my team, we try to follow the mainstream's indication from UN and things, but I see here that something is missing. We can add a lot of things and try to improve the knowledge that is nowadays available.
Thank you for organizing this meeting. I go back thinking that we are at a good point on land take. We are not so far from each other, and there is the necessity of filling some gaps and make coherence between some indicators, but they are not really different in the basic concepts. So it's only a matter of time to have proper indicators to address policies. So this is maybe in 5 year times we can sit here and say, okay, we were right, and now we have our information complete. Thank you.
Well, I think, yeah, for me and also colleagues, it was really like a fresh air because, as you said, in your work day, you are focused on your work and your perspective, and then at the end, you end within your loop. So opening and meeting different people, in particular looking from all these different examples, apart from the information in the morning that I was more aware, but seeing these different examples, I think it's really inspiring because then going back to the work, still working at European level, but having in mind more examples, more things, and different perspective. And I think it always helps, not be closed somewhere.